Hi there, I'm Miss Elizabeth. I'm a triple certified Florida teacher, and I have worked in 3 different high schools in Florida. And I'm here to share with you that there is hope outside of the public school system. And I'd like to share my philosophy of education, but mostly right now, how I was educated and how it made me a lifelong learner. So I'm from Texas. I grew up there and also in the heart of Dixie in Birmingham, Alabama, which is quite an education in and of itself. I'm the youngest of 5. I have 4 older brothers. I grew up, being a tomboy. Because I was the youngest, you know, my parents, people weren't trying to teach me to read. I was just running around after the big boys and trying to do what they did. So I remember opening up a closet and seeing all these Dr. Seuss books, and I remember thinking, is this all there is? I knew even then there was more to literature than Dr. Seuss, although he's pretty good. So I didn't learn to read until I was in the 1st grade, and I learned to read at school. But I went to a Montessori kindergarten, and they did prepare me for reading readiness. In fact, I remember crawling on the floor because the whole movement of going left to right, runs circuitry in your brain to help you know to go from left to right on a page when you're reading. It's kind of awesome the way that works. Oh, and I'm also certified to teach reading K through 12, if I didn't say that already. But so once I did learn to read, then I was off. My life changed because I was reading when I wanted to read. I was reading all the time, and I was following my own interests, and that's what I've always done, and it's worked so far. But it did turn me into a lifelong learner. So learning to read was big. Then going to high school where I could take French was another big event in my life. I went to an excellent high school, and studying a new language and culture opened up so much to me. And it was quite an escape from Birmingham, Alabama. And I went on to study Italian and German and art history, and all of those took me outside of the anti-intellectualism, the provincialism, the racism, all of these isms of Birmingham at that time. Birmingham has changed a lot since then, so it's not like that. It's very sophisticated. But anyway, my mother was an English teacher, and her mother was an English teacher. And my mother said, "Oh, you should become a teacher too." And I said, "No, I'm going to do what I want to do. Thank you very much." And so I did. I studied history, and I eventually got a master's degree in history. But I did grow up with, education journals all around. It was talked about constantly. I helped my mother grade papers. She paid me to make her bulletin boards. And, but I wasn't ready to be a teacher then. Instead, I became a historian. And when I got to college, I took art history. And that was another really signal moment in my education because I learned that I was a visual learner, and sitting in a dark room, with 2 screens comparing 2 different works of art and writing about it, that was my thing. I loved it. And so I had to study more languages for that. And I was really more interested in European culture and languages and history and art than in anything to do, especially with the South. I didn't want anything to do with Southern history, and not much to do with American history at that time because I couldn't take the South out of the United States. So I became an archivist. I started writing, and I'm published 3 books in the history of medicine and sciences. The 21st century rolled around. I I had written 5 books, but then the internet really, took over everything and the publishing industry changed. And I went into writing for a television network and editing news. I learned the Associated Press guidelines. But when we moved back to Florida about 3 years ago, I realized, hey, I might try this teaching gig out. And so I, applied to get a temporary certification, got a job in Lakeland, and I have just recently finished my 5-year professional teacher certification. So I'm here to offer parents information and hope about their children's education. And I want to say that my experience and the experience of most teachers is that we're basically warehousing students, and teachers are data managers, and we're also cops. And so there's not as much time for real teaching. And when children are homeschooled, they have more time to relax and more time to learn a lot more, and to also follow their own interests in an environment that's relaxed. And it can be very rigorous. It depends on who's teaching. And so what I'm here to do is to consult with parents and to offer the information that I have. It's very easy to start homeschooling in Florida. And what I believe, and every parent needs to pick out their own curriculum, but they need to understand the wide range of what's available out there. Every parent, every child, every family situation is different. And you as a parent have a right to pick that out for your child. So educational theory for the last 20 years has been about preparing students to be part of the global workforce, working in teams. And I'm really not sure that that's really worked. I don't think it's worked. And because we have a lot of students, like there are high schools around here, where the students read on a 6th grade level. That's the average. It's all over the country. It's not just here in Florida. So what I learned when I was in graduate school, I studied ancient, medieval, and Renaissance history. And I studied I got the kind of education that people at that time wanted for themselves. And it was a more classical education. And what's happened with school books is that a lot of those classics have been pushed aside to include all kinds of minor literary text from every corner of the globe, and in the effort to reach some goal. But it's really dumbed down education. And so what I propose, or what I think is the best thing to do if I had children to do at home to educate would be a more classical education. But again, it's really what is best for a family and the child or the children together. Education is not one size fits all. And that is the beauty of home education, of homeschooling, where you attend co-ops, you can form co-ops, you can have, you may have a parent in the co-op who's really good at calculus and can teach calculus to the kids, to the high school kids, things like that. You might have a parent who was a reading teacher who can help struggling readers. So there's just many options out there. And I wanted to say there's a lot of hope. And I hope to be able to help you. And until we meet again, as I say to my students, onward and upward.